Hey, what's up? This is Eric, and this is the first official fig video of the year. Just got done doing the first knockdown mowing job of the year, and yeah, I figured it's a good opportunity to go through kind of where the figs are at. You can kind of see the difference between the figs that got a greenhouse start and those that didn't now. See what the difference is. And for some trees, it's not much, I'll be honest. For some trees, they've pretty much evened out. And that includes some of the stuff in the ground. So, but the cool thing is this year we had, you know, some cooler weather, and then it jumped right up and got hot right away. And now today it's kind of backed off and it's a little bit cooler again. It'll be cool for the next couple of days, and then we'll ramp back up into the 80s. You know, the trees look great. They're putting on a lot of growth. There's a lot of development. I'm starting to see some main crop little bumps. No bona fide fruit starts yet, figlets as we like to call them, beyond Breba. The Breba on my Desert King, I'm not seeing as many as I would think there would have been, but it's still, you know, probably the best choice for us here in the ground in the Pacific Northwest. So there are others though, and you know, really these videos that I do are geared towards the people in the Pacific Northwest. If anything that I say, if you can glean some information from it and help steer you in a direction, I hope that works out. I'm not trying to pretend to be any kind of an expert. I'm just a schmuck hobbyist with a lot of trees and an iPhone, and I have a lot of fun propagating trees and growing trees in my downtime. So when I'm not teaching and working in my studio. So for those that bought cuttings from me this year, I just want to say thank you. I never take that for granted. I know this hobby is personal. I know it can be expensive. I know that there's a certain level of trust that you have to show somebody if you're going to buy something from them, especially when these rare fig trees come up, or anything for that matter. There's a certain level of trust that comes with that, and I appreciate those people that trust me enough to get stuff from me. So anyway, I just really appreciate that. So first one up, this is a new, not a new tree, but this is the first year it's fruited for me, and I'm kind of blown away by how good it's doing. This is my Gillette. Now this is technically, I think it's a capra fig, right? But it's got an edible crop, and it's grown in the Northwest all over the place, if you know where to look. My buddy Derek gave me that one, and he's kind of fond of it. I'm testing it out to see what the Breba crop is like and if it's worth potentially putting in the ground. I don't know yet. I'm not going to do the whole hand pollinating thing. It doesn't really interest me. At one time it did. Anymore, I don't have any desire to do that. I don't have time for that, to be honest. I've got more important things to do with my time than inoculate figs. So that's for somebody else to do. You know, I'm just trying to grow the best stuff I can that doesn't need a whole lot of work, doesn't need a whole lot of maintenance. So these are all trees that did not get any kind of head start at all. This is one of the Mount Etna types. This is San Miguel Rocho. It's got, you know, pretty decent growth on it. This is the same as Azores Dark. If you see San Miguel Rocho out there for sale or whatever, don't pay a premium for Azores Dark. It's the same exact fig. And Mount Etnas are all pretty much the same anyway. It just depends on year to year which one's going to give you the best fruit. So for me, last year, I'll be brutally honest, my San Miguel Rocho sucked. It wasn't even in the same ballpark as like Colasanti Dark or RLBV, Dark Portuguese, a few other ones, Bronx Italian Purple. I think honestly it's probably pretty root bound and has a hard time holding water. So I think that's probably got something to do with it. But this year could be different. I know Chris, my buddy, Oregon Figs on YouTube, his San Miguel last year really did great for him, and he really liked it in terms of the Etna types. RLBV is one that's very consistently good for both of us. Sangua Dolce is another one that's very consistently good. That one was, Sangua Dolce last year for me was pretty killer. And I found that Colasanti Dark is a really, really good one. So Crows might be another Etna. I don't know. I have a hard time thinking that it's an Etna bait because I've had it grown in Santa Barbara in the ground and it wasn't caprified and it just seemed different. But I don't know. I'm not to walk it back or anything, but I really don't know. And I'll know more as my trees mature and get more developed. But moving forward, you can see how much growth there is on trees. This is my green Michurinska. Fantastic tree. I've got one in the ground. I've got another one. I've got a third tree in a pot. That's a really great tree to have. I think that's a good one for the Northwest. As far as like reliable Brava producers though, Desert King is going to be your best bet. So you might have success with some Brunswick types. I've got one called Angier Torquay that isn't very big, but it put out a couple. I've got Detraces Plates, has a few on it. That's one of my favorite trees. This tree here in front of me, this one has quite a few on it, but they're not very big. They're not developing very fast. This is my Dolce Cuore. And what I did was I have been trying to pinch off the green vegetative growth because I'm going to force all the growth into this new trunk here to get it to grow up straight. Because all of this main trunk here, this is a great shape for like a potted tree, but I'm not crazy about it for in the ground because it's just too short to the ground and too bent over. I keep fighting dogs on chewing stuff that's within eyesight. So I'm gonna take the majority of that out and allow this to be the new tree. That way I can put a cage around it, keep it nice and tall, keep it straight, and keep it the central leader. It's got a lot of suckers that come up around it. So those are also gonna have to come out, and I just wanna keep it in check. But this year seems to be a good year for Dolce Cuore Brava. Hopefully they hold. Last year I didn't get any, and we had a cold snap that came through and kind of ruined things for Brava on a lot of trees. So we'll see on that one. Let's see, this is Desert King, or more than likely, I think it's probably Norman's Yellow. I don't think it's actually a true Desert King. They taste identical. My tree just isn't as productive, and the leaves seem a little bit different. But I've started grafting a bunch of different varieties to this tree. to try and save them and trying to consolidate space. I just have too many trees in pots, and I'm running out of room in my yard. So, you know, I think we have to, as people in the Pacific Northwest, we have to discern and wade through a lot of BS about what trees work well, what trees we should focus on, especially if we're hearing opinions coming from outside of the area, or if we're hearing opinions that are coming from people trying to sell something. So one tree that I've struggled a little bit with in getting it ripe is Robert's Golden Rainbow. A buddy of mine, Derek, down in Springfield, has ripened his in the ground, and he said it was really good. The only time I've gotten it to ripen was when it was in a pot, and then it split. In the ground, I haven't gotten anything. So I'm not willing to write it off yet, but with as vigorous as it is, it's also a prime candidate to be grafted onto. So I've done that here, and it looks like it's growing. So there's a little bud right there that's swelling and pushing out. So, you know, I don't know if it's going to do much. It does have a few little double nodes that indicate it's going to put some fruit out at some point, but I don't know if they're going to develop anytime soon. Another couple of trees that I have not been very happy with, this is Negra de Agda, and this is sold by a pretty prominent nursery, and they claim that it does well. However, it's an extraordinarily productive tree. It actually put out a lot of breva and they all dropped. And the main crop gets almost ripe, whether you're growing in a pot or in the ground, it gets almost ripe and then they drop. So maybe it needs more maturity, but to this point, I haven't been impressed with it. It's been a frustrating tree. Same thing over here with this one. This is my Stella that for the first couple of years hardly grew. This year it's putting on some decent growth early. It's not overly productive in terms of main crop. All of the breva for this year and last year, all of the breva have dropped. And I've heard that from several other growers, that breva on Stella, which is the same as Dalmati as far as I can tell, they all drop. And so I would be hard pressed to recommend this tree. This tree is a tree that's been sold in Portland for years. And you know, I know there's a lot of urban heat in the city, and maybe it would do better there. But out here, where it's more rural, we don't have a lot of that urban sprawl heat. We don't have a lot of the concrete and the asphalt and the buildings that catch a lot of the heat and reflect it back out. It hasn't done well. It's been too late to ripen any main crop. So I think these two trees are probably on the bubble for me as far as whether or not I'm going to continue to grow them. They are still relatively young, but when I have so many other trees that have proven that they can handle being left out without a head start and are productive, it makes those decisions a lot easier. For example, you know, Vincenzo is one that does really well. This is actually my mother tree. You can see how terrible it grows. But, you know, it's got quite a few breva on it. The breva hold. They ripen just fine. It ripens main crop in a pot without a head start, it does really well for me, despite how terrible that tree actually grows. I have it in the ground on a grafted rootstock to see if I can get it to grow better. I just actually put it in the ground. It's right here. I have another one on its own roots that seems to grow better than the mother tree. So I do have a backup of it just in case. I'm not sure exactly what to do with this one. I may trim some of it and put it in the ground, or bare root it and see if I can get it to stand a little bit more straight up. I don't know yet. Over here I've got another one that the dogs chewed off and had some cold damage, so I'm not going to get any Brava on that one. Hard to tell, who knows yet. Tia Pena, I do this one over here. I had a couple of Brava develop in the greenhouse. That's not enough for me to say that it's a good, reliable tree to grow in the ground in the Northwest. So having 1 or 2 Brava on a tree, or even 10 Brava on a tree, for me is not enough. I mean, the gold standard for us is Desert King. And if a tree is a substantial size, you want to see a lot of Brava, right? So this is my Oro Rosado. I put this one in the ground because it's very, very productive. And I don't have as many Brava this year on it compared to last year. But it's also a productive main crop producer. And some of those actually held last year despite being dry. So I don't know if it's common or not. It might be a San Pedro. It might be partially common, but it's a good one. It's a good choice for in the ground, especially for striped figs if you want something like that. For Brava. Rosado del Salento Palo Bologna is another one for striped figs. That would be a good choice for in the ground here. Back here I've got my Fico Secco, formerly known as Fico Greco. That's also a good choice for in the ground. Same as Moro de Caneva. The dogs got a hold of it, so I've got to protect it. And I won't get any Brava this year, but it's coming back. So the dogs chewed right above that little green growth, and so all of this is dead, unfortunately. This one is Uncle Corky's Honey Delight. Produces good Brava. For me, it was indiscernible from Desert King. So I don't know if it's the same. I don't know if it's different. I don't know really anything about it, but it does produce quite a few Brava, or supposedly produces quite a few Brava, and it should be a good choice. Over here I have my Grantham's Royal. It's got a grand total of, I think, 3 Brava on it. Again, the dogs were going after this one, so I had to, you know, cordon it off. But as it gets older, I think it'll be more productive. After talking to a few people around the area, they say that's a good choice for in the ground. So you get where I'm going with this. Brava trees. Violet de Bordeaux is another one. It's too late to get main crop, more than likely in the ground. Petite Negra is another one. That one actually does need to be in the ground. I found that growing it in a pot, it's kind of terrible. But it does produce a few really good Brava. Main crop is far too late. And that's what this one is. This is Petite Negra. Very similar to Violet de Bordeaux. Maybe just a slower growing version of it, so the tree stays small. Teramo is another one that I didn't realize it produces Brava, but it does have some. It looks like it's going to hold. Not very many, certainly, but main crop is early enough, so that one's a good one. My Bronx Italian Purple, this is kind of interesting. My Bronx Italian Purple is actually putting out some Breva, and I thought this was a standard Mount Etna type, but maybe it is something different. I didn't realize Mount Etna's made Breva, but who knows, maybe they'll drop. I don't know. This is a prime example of, that's weird. That's not enough evidence to say that's a consistent Breva producing tree. You know what I mean? Something like Smith is in that boat as well. I have two Smith trees. I have one in the ground and one in a pot. The one in the pot has a single Breva. The one in the ground has 0. So I don't buy that one as being a Breva tree. This one is Iranian Candy. And again, this is one of those situations, as I'm learning about stuff, I didn't realize this one produced Breva, but it's got quite a few on it. And the main crop is early enough that it should be a good tree for us. And then the last one that I'm going to talk about on this video is this Lampera Preta. This is the first year it's produced anything for me. And these all look like they're going to hold. And that's a fantastic site. So quite a few, not Desert King level, certainly, but it's a smaller tree. It's in a pot, but I can't move the pot because it's dug into the ground so much. So I think that's why it's holding, and I think that's got something to do with why it's holding anyway. I think the other reason why it's holding is because this pot isn't getting as hot as it did where it was prior to this. Before, it was up over there on the side of the house, and it would just get blasted with, you know, heat reflecting off of the house. It would get blasted with direct sun. Over here, it's in the grass. It's on the shadier side of the yard where it doesn't get sun until probably 11 o'clock in the morning, and it's just doing better. So, and it's dug into the ground. So there's that. So I think I'm gonna end it there. This is all very circumstantial. It's not definitive, but these are the findings that I'm seeing so far. One last thing that I'm gonna be doing, Pete at figlife.com asked if he could put my videos on his website for other people in the Northwest to find, and I agreed. So this year I'm going to be doing single variety videos to help with that and to help make things a little bit easier. Over here, these are the trees that primarily got a greenhouse start, and you can see how much further along they are compared to some of the stuff in the ground. That's a pretty good example. The new growth starts right there, and it's got probably about a foot of growth on that one. That's a very vigorous tree. That's Algerina Blanca. This one, Berlino, you know, probably about 8 or 10 inches or so. So compared to something that didn't get the greenhouse start, that's growing well, let's see, how about now this in-ground tree here, you know, 3 inches of growth or so. Same thing up here. I would say between 3 and 6 inches of growth on most of them. Some of them might hit 8 inches of growth. They're starting to equalize. So had I been able to leave stuff in the greenhouse longer, obviously that extra heat earlier in the season is going to play a big part in their development. It's not about requiring light, a certain amount of light for growth. I had trees in my garage that weren't getting any light at all, and they put out a ton of growth. So it's really about heat in terms of early growth. In terms of fruit set, it's about overnight heat. You know, light is super, super important. I don't have that problem here. I get a ton of light. Most of my trees are in full light all day long. the equalizer or the limiting factor is overnight temperatures. It can be 80 in the daytime here, but when it drops down to 50 at night, it really slows the trees down. So you really want your temperatures overnight to be consistently above 50 to get the most growth possible. So if you can supplement that early in the season in a greenhouse or garage or something like that, they're going to do better, especially for those later varieties. Okay? All right. Take care. See you around, and watch for more videos coming up.